Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Lew Apollo. Lew has a new record, his debut record, coming out called Fool's Gold. It'll be out next week, so definitely check it out. And well, today's episode, we dig into some serious talk because one of the songs he wrote, Die For You, was written shortly before his father committed suicide. So this episode, if you have any triggers, please be advised that we do talk about suicide and surviving suicide, meaning the aftermath. So it's a very deep conversation. We also talk a little bit about fame, about music, and about his journey from being the baby of the family to finding his own voice. So tune in. Hi Lou, how are you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You are about to release your first full-length record. You had a EP called Jungle, and now you're about to release your new record. What's that like for you as an artist? Because I know this is something that you changed your life to follow music, and music kind of gave you a whole nother life because from what I was reading, you had this background of being kind of, I don't want to say smothered because that's not the right word, but everybody else's personalities overshadowed you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like this whole journey as an artist has been incredible for me personally, and just kind of like a self journey, if you will. The whole grind of being a musician and trying to make a name for myself kind of stemmed, like you alluded to, from like a childhood of feeling overshadowed just indirectly, not there's no nefarious reason for me being like in the shadows, being the youngest in the family. But that's just kind of the way it was. And so grew up very blue collar, and my father and brother, older brother, were both very much like very tough love and alpha males in the household. And so whenever I tried to speak, I was always kind of, just told, I'm the youngest and stuff. So it was tough to make a name for myself at the dinner table. And I think that's kind of what's led this lifelong pursuit of being, making a name for myself and just really, really going after it in everything I do, not just music, for sure.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. As the baby, there's two options when you're the baby of the family. Either you're going to be smothered by mom,
Yeah, yeah.
and then, most everybody else they they pile on. My late husband, he was the baby of the family. And so I watched it from him, especially when his parents passed, because it was like, we're going to do this, we're going to be in charge, and they really weren't. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think everyone deals with that. And like I said, like not usually like usually it's indirect, you know what I mean? Just that's just the dynamic of the family. And so like I love my brother to death, and I love my dad to death and love who they are. But that's just the way it was in our family, where every time I spoke, I didn't really have a voice and everything. And in turn, I never could really like I never learned the art of like telling stories that well, like verbally. So I've had to kind of learn that and learn to do it through music too, mainly. So
Well, and that's important that you found that voice because not everybody does. A lot of people just stifle their stuff. And I'm from the generation of I'm Gen X, and we were taught you should be seen and not heard. And so
mm,
it's like you had to, as you grew, you had to find your own voice. And that isn't
amen to
always
that.
the easiest thing.
No, it's not. No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to find it. I definitely haven't like found it yet. Well, maybe I have, but to other people, but to myself, like I'm still, that's why I'm still working so hard and stuff is not despite anything, but just because I'm still looking, you know what I mean? And I'm still looking exactly what I'm meant here, placed here to do, I guess.
Well, that's the lifelong thing. I mean, we are always evolving. We're always trying to find our voice, and our voice changes throughout our lifetime.
Absolutely, 100%.
So you, and I've done it too. I'm originally from New Orleans and I've lived in Chicago for almost 30 years. But you went the exact opposite. You went from Minnesota down to Texas.
Yes. Yeah, it was kind of the worst two climates in America, the lower 48 at least, to experience, being from northern Minnesota originally, where it's just negative 40 in the winter, and then coming down here. We moved down here in me and my wife, Jasmine, we moved down here, and in the dead of August. And so I think it was 110 degrees when we were moving into our second story apartment that the stairs were outside. So we were carrying up couches and everything in 110-degree weather. So that wasn't exciting. It wasn't a great introduction to Texas, but we knew what we were meant to be here for.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I don't live in New Orleans is because it's too blooming hot, and it just no, I couldn't handle it now. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I know. I've heard stories of that. And the first time we visited back home, I think over Christmas or something like that, the first year we lived here, it was called what they called the polar vortex. And I
Mhm.
think it was -30 or -40 degrees every single day for about 6 days straight. And we perfectly planned our trip right when that 6 days happened. And so the whole time we were struggling because we didn't have the right gear at all. But glad to be down here though, because 7 of the 12 months are gorgeous, and it's beautiful.
When I we had it was -2, -3, which isn't the whole thing that you were dealing with. This was in the 90s. And I'm getting ready to go to New Orleans for Christmas. And so I have my leather trench on. I am bundled up beyond belief. I get down to New Orleans. I think it was like 40 degrees. They are all bundled up and I am like taking everything off. And I wore
Yeah,
short sleeves the whole time and they're like, "You're nuts." I'm like, "No, this is warm. You don't
yeah.
understand."
It's crazy. It's crazy how fast your body can get used to stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, have you found I what I was reading is that you were in like three different types of bands that were kind of supporting you, and then after the pandemic, you decided to start writing your own stuff. Was that
Yes.
had you dabbled before in writing your own stuff, or this was just like I'm isolated, so I got to do something with my mind and clear out some stuff?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I always thought coming down to Austin in 2017, I believe, I always thought I would just be a guitar player because, in high school when I picked up the guitar and everything, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I thought that that would be the extent of it, is just to be a guitar player for other bands and things, and so be kind of a hired gun type of musician. Um, I quickly found out after my first jam in Austin, I played with a guy named Dave Scher, who is renowned in Austin and probably surrounding areas. Tours with an artist named Eric Johnson. He's an incredible, incredible guitar player, and I quickly found out I was not like to the level yet of these guys who are getting the calls in Austin, and so I quickly found that I need to learn very quickly, which I did a little bit, and so I dabbled in different bands, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, tried to make money doing it. Then, of course, the great reset of for all of us, COVID happened. Um, a month prior to COVID, actually, my wife's best friend passed away by her own hand as well. And they roomed together, and she was up in Minnesota. We were living in Austin. Very, very tough. That month stretch between that and then COVID hit, and then it was kind of a double whammy. And we were. It was almost. I mean, if there was any silver lining to it, it was, the world shut down while we were in probably the most difficult time up until that point in our lives as well, dealing with this great loss. And so COVID was a reset for all of us, but especially me and my wife, because we realized like, nothing is guaranteed and everything. We need to really just kind of look out for ourselves through the recent loss. um, I quickly found out that I wasn't going to, make it big or make that great of a career out of just being a guitar player because, like I said, there's bigger fish in the pond for sure. So I had to really find my individuality. And that was another pursuit from, growing up as the youngest. I never really felt I had that voice. So I realized I need to find that and I need to just sit down and figure that out. And so I started teaching myself some cover songs and things like that and started, trying to learn how to sing and everything. I sang a little bit growing up, in like choir and things, but I always thought of it as like a secondary thing. And I was always way too shy, being the youngest, to ever sing in front of people or anything like that. So I quickly learned that that was going to be the only ticket out, pretty much. And so, yeah, learned enough songs to do a set with my own band that I've played with in other bands in Austin. And then that quickly snowballed into the other things. Then I started writing my own stuff. A lot of the songs off the first EP were written in the first 5 months of that COVID period when I was just learning how to write songs. Yeah, that was kind of my first crack at it, if you will. And now this upcoming album, I feel much more comfortable in myself and my writing ability and everything. So
And the interesting thing so the song Die For You was written a month before your dad passed. Did
mm,
you kind of, I mean, this is the weird thing about suicide. Did
yeah,
you have any inclination that he was suicidal?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and that's the tough part about it. I did. And being down, many states away, over 1,000 miles from him, we were best friends, and everything. And he came down here many times. He was here helping us move into our first apartment, in that blistering heat. And he was a 6'4", 275 pound guy. He was didn't do
Yeah.
well in the heat, if you will. He was very much a northern Minnesota guy. Um, but yeah, absolutely, I did. And I knew he struggled with depression, as I do, and as so many others. And I knew he struggled with that. I knew he was going through a tough time, and I always was asking my mom every time I called her, a couple times a week, like kind of indirectly pointing at, hey, is this in the cards? Is this something that would happen? And of course, my loving mother, of course, she was reassuring me, no, of course not. And, she felt absolute, truthful in that. And that made me feel good. It was one Christmas about a year before he passed. Me and we all went to Colorado where my brother lived for a couple of years with his wife. And my brother mentioned, now the story is very, I don't know, this is deep. I haven't thought about this in a minute, so I got to
That's
kind of
okay.
think about it. But my brother mentioned um, seeing some notes of my dad's, some of his therapy notes and things, and he mentioned just seeing it on the counter in the open, and mentioned that that might have been a possibility for my dad. And so I felt such a heavy weight in my chest when he told me that he saw something like that, that I almost felt it had already been done. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so uh, so yeah, and so that was about 9 months prior to him passing, and so I wrote "Die for You" a month prior in August, and he passed in September, I believe. And so yeah, it was kind of like a premonition or something like that, where I had this feeling the whole time. And the last time I actually spoke to my dad, I called him, and I had something nagging on me after I hung up the phone. It was a very tough love family. We never said I love you, Dad, or anything like
Hmm.
that. Hardly ever hugged. But yeah, I called him right back after I hung up, and I was walking around Austin, and I just called him right back. I've never done that before, but I called him right back, and I said, Dad, I want you to know that, through your childhood and through your family struggling with depression and everything, I want to let you know that you broke the cycle with me and Dylan. I want to let you know that, we don't struggle with that. And that's because of your you know, your guidance and everything, and you being a father and such a great father. And I said, I love you, Dad. And it was about a 30-second call of me just saying that. And I've never told him that prior to then. And that was the last time I spoke to him over the phone.
Did you
And
still
so,
go ahead? Sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you still have a nagging feeling after that?
Yeah, I did. And that's why I think I said it. I didn't know consciously why I called him back that time, but something in me for sure, God or whatever. But and then the last time I saw him in person, I know I'm going really in
No,
depth
that's
on
that's okay.
this.
Because I mean, I'm gonna valid. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, gotcha. The last time I saw him in person was a month prior to that when we visited Minnesota back home in July. And I kind of confronted him about that, about my nagging feeling in person. And I said, I'm kind of going backwards here, but I said to him, he walked in the house and we were standing out in the driveway. It's pitch black. It was like 10 p.m. He walked in the house and um, I asked him to come back outside real quick, and I hugged him. It was pitch black. I couldn't see his face, and I started crying. And I said, you wouldn't do anything like that. I didn't say it directly, but I said, you wouldn't do anything to hurt us, would you? And he said, I would never do anything to hurt you. And he hugged me and he burst in tears as well. You know, and so then that happened. Then our phone call a month later, and then he passed a month later. So it almost helped, if you will, the grieving process, knowing that I had those moments with him and knowing that, he was my best friend and everything, knowing that I feel like it wasn't him that did those things. And so I know in his heart of hearts, he meant every single word of what he said. That he didn't want to hurt me or Dylan or my mom. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I wrote that song. I know I've kind of gone down a long tangent here, but I wrote that song and I felt it was very strange looking back a couple months after he passed that I wrote that song and I produced that song almost directly as how it is on the album, where I had these sound effects in there, a gun cocking sound effect. Um, and yeah, I was writing it as a love song, and yeah, it had a different meaning for sure after I reflected on it, for sure.
First, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I understand your loss.
Yeah.
My mother, I was in Dallas at the time, and she was in Indiana. She had just moved up to Shreveport, and I understand that feeling of you make that last phone call. And when I talked to her the last time, I something with she had tried it many a times. In fact, I saved her life in high school,
Mhm.
but there was something different in the phone call.
Mhm.
And something in my gut told I had seen her about 6 months before because she came over to see me in Dallas and before she moved to Indiana.
Yeah.
And something in that phone call, that last phone call, I knew. And I called her right back and she didn't answer the phone. And
Wow.
my grandmother tried calling. Because she called my grandmother before she talked to me.
Mm.
And all day I knew. And my ex-husband, at the
Mhm.
time he was my husband, he's like, "Oh, you're fine. Everything's going to be okay." I could not shake that feeling. And the next morning, my stepfather called to tell me that she had done it. She had,
Mhm.
and somebody framed it beautifully, especially with my mother's history, that she
Mhm.
completed her mission.
Mhm.
And you know,
Yeah.
with your dad saying he wouldn't hurt, I'm going to validate that because I think that people that are at that brink when their depression is so bad
Mhm.
to go ahead and pull that trigger, literally,
Mhm.
they are not looking at you or anybody else. They're looking at the pain that they are in.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing for them to fathom that they're
Mhm.
going to hurt you by doing this. They think they're
Mhm.
making everything better,
Mhm.
and they're not.
Mhm.
And you can't explain that to them because they are so lost at that moment.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss. And that's part of my mission through this album and through everything else in my career is bigger than music, obviously. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm able to, that's why I'm such an open book about this and why I want to communicate this stuff. And I'm sure why you want to as well. Um, because I want to, connect with people like this and people who are struggling with depression and everything. And I do too, and so many millions of people do. And it's such a normal thing, especially with social media, especially with COVID happening and everything. There's all these added layers that we can't even see. And yeah, so I want to connect with people over my music. That's why it has such strong themes of this and I'm so transparent is because I want to normalize it and just express to people that it's it's something to be okay it, through through either grieving it or having those thoughts and it's all going to be okay. So there's a lot of positivity in the world. My dad, I'm sure your mother, um My dad at times was the funniest person in the whole entire world and the most loving, kind-hearted. He was a teacher, and so he was, and he would hate that I just said that because he put on such a strong like
Yeah.
iron shield. But he just loved kids, and so he was such a loving heart and such a pure heart, and so as I'm sure your mother was as well. And that's still with us, and some people have so much to offer that they don't even see.
Well, and that's the thing. When I started doing the podcast, the very first episode, because my original intention by the podcast was everybody's got a better two moment, a moment that they had to reflect back on. And so when I
Mm,
started the podcast, I did an episode about saving my mother's life.
mm,
And because if I'm going to ask somebody else to be vulnerable, then I needed to be vulnerable.
100%.
And my mom, unfortunately, yeah, when I was littler, she had her moments where she was a great mom. But there
Mm,
was a lot of mental illness. And watching her go through what she went through,
mhm,
I mean, I had told my stepfather to make sure he took and got rid of the gun in the house. I warned him, but he
mhm,
didn't. And
mhm.
so it's like that moment where you are completely helpless, you're over 1,000 miles away and you can't do anything.
Yeah,
It's hard.
yeah.
But see, this is where we'll get a little dark for a second. My mother, before she moved to Shreveport, she had called me to come find her. She was going to shoot herself in the shower
Mm.
and wanted me to find her.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I
Yeah.
said, if you loved me, you wouldn't ask me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
hard.
that's what I'm saying. And there was no, because I'm the daughter, I really have no say. The spouse has to be the person to get her committed or get her help.
Mm,
So
mm,
there's a certain point where there's that person like your father
mm,
who seemed to have been dealing with depression, but I think my mother had other issues that she just didn't want to face.
mm, mm.
And it was a hard thing and it took me a long time to get past it and to move on. And anytime somebody brings up suicide, it's one of those things that yeah, it's triggering. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, going through your own cancer battle, there's depression, and nobody talks about that. Nobody talks when you get an illness that there's a depression attached to it.
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
it's something that people have to start recognizing that depression when you it's not a dirty word. And maybe drugs work sometimes, but there also is the need to either write or talk it out
Mhm.
because you're just masking if you're not really getting to the core of what's causing this pain.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, yeah, exactly. There's so many layers and people are so deep, you can talk to someone for, days straight and not know a single thing about them. Um, Absolutely. That it's such a difficult topic and such a hard thing to try and talk about lightly. So that's why you kind of just, that's why I've learned through my grief and stuff and maybe through yours as well. Um, it's been easier for me and to talk openly about it. Um, and not to hide anything. Because if I'm hiding something, you know, I'm not talking about my father if I'm hiding things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all the good that who he was and how he impacted me in such a positive way. So I think you kind of got to take, the bad things with the good things. But yeah, absolutely.
And then there's also, I don't know if you've experienced this yet,
Mhm.
but the fact that when you now go and fill out medical paperwork,
Yeah.
they ask you, so father deceased,
Hmm.
how did your father die? So
Mm.
immediately there's this stigma placed on you about your parent having committed suicide. Even in a general conversation when somebody's like, "So how's your dad?" What
Right.
there's this stigma to suicide and really we need to reframe that to not be so toxic.
Yeah. Exactly. 100%. And same with like, everyone has their own battles. But so many people struggle with it and stuff, and it's so normal, to struggle with, dark thoughts or depression or anxieties or, you know, um, everyone. My theory is everyone has a percentage of depression or anxieties in their own way, and it just comes out in different ways, whether it's OCD or, different little ticks people have. But absolutely, absolutely, it's a tough stigma to realize that's there, you know. And so every time it happens, I'm just, I may say something or something, but then people, try to say I'm so sorry and try to sympathize with me, and it's like it's okay, and it's a normal thing that people go through, and it's too bad, yeah, but I'm still here, and we're all still here. You're still here, and we're living in their honor, pretty much. So.
Yeah, you keep going because there comes a moment like for me when I hit 42, I'm like I outlived my mother because she died at
Right,
41 and it's like okay,
right.
and then you keep going and you the thing about it too is and if anybody ever has experienced this or if this ends up, you do start looking at what they missed out on. What
Mm,
your successes,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you wanted to get married and you wanted your father or to be there or you wanted your mother to be there, they're not there. You're
yeah.
going to miss out on that, but they are still with you. They are still watching out for you and they still are cheering you on, whether you want to or not. In fact, years later, right before I got married to my first husband, my mother came to me in a dream. She had kept coming to me. This was like maybe a year after she died. She kept coming to me telling me she wasn't dead. And I'm like, "You're dead, Mom." Just,
Mm,
it was nerve-wracking. And about a month
yeah.
before I was going to get married, she came to me in a dream with my stepdaughter and she's like, I need to talk to you. There's something I need to tell you." And I'm like, "You're dead. Go away." She's like, "No, I need to tell you. She's adamant. I'm just like, "Go away." So I married him. There was so many signs that I shouldn't have. And yeah,
Mm.
the marriage didn't last a year.
Oh,
So I
wow.
look back and go, I'm pretty sure she was going to tell me not to marry him.
It's wild. The world is a crazy, crazy place. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's kind of you kind of have those funny moments in a way, not so funny at the time, but funny to look back on. And that's what's beautiful about life is that there's still it's still so deep, you know what I mean? It's like I'm now just barely able to laugh and I still can't really watch videos of my dad, it still feels too recent. But I can, look at some pictures, I get sad and stuff, but I laugh, I laugh about stories and me and my wife joke about his humor and everything and how funny he was, and how much he's inspired me. But yeah, absolutely. We're actually going up to we're heading out on tour in a couple weeks, and we're heading to Minnesota, northern Minnesota, for the first time, as me as my own artist. And I feel I'm kind of got this little added anxiety because I know I'm going to be a bit sad. Maybe, maybe I won't be. I don't know. But I know I'm going to be a bit sad that, the biggest fan isn't going to be there, But I think that's something that comes with the territory of grief. But but it's all okay. And I feel I've weathered the storm as much as possible. But being transparent, like we're saying, like really helps in removing the stigma, in our own conversation right now, helps with everyone, I think, maybe.
Well,
So yeah.
I was gonna say though, don't sit there and think that he may not be there. Okay, so my
Right.
husband died during COVID. He didn't have it, but he died during it. And I was closing up my little space that I had. I had a little shop in the small town I was at. And he had a sewing room in there. And the very last room that I decided to tackle was this sewing room. And so as
Mhm.
I stood there, everything was out of the room. I just stood there. And he had this habit of anytime I was super stressed of rubbing my back. And I know somebody's going to like, she's insane, but that's fine. But I was standing there just being contemplative, and I swear I felt him rubbing my back. I felt
Mhm.
something rubbing my back. So I was like, okay. So don't think there may be something that he
Right.
did or something that'll remind you of him as you're
Right.
there playing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm definitely open to that thing. I'm definitely not I'm definitely a religious, person. And so, I'm definitely open to all that stuff. So I don't like brush it off as like, nah, that's, my
Hmm.
brother's a little bit like that, where he's a little bit more black and white, where he's like, but even him, like, I won't go into it, but yeah, he's softened up for sure since this has happened, to other worldly things happening for sure. And he's a very strong man of faith as well. So yeah, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about the very first song on here. You've done a video for it, and we're talking about hell in it. And what
Yeah,
was the precipitation? Why that?
that's a good question. I don't think I know the answer, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Um, yeah, so I wrote this song, after listening to a band called Jungle, very like house, upbeat music that I just really love. And I knew I needed, it was one of the last songs I wrote for the album, actually. And it turned out to be probably my favorite song, one of the favorites off the album. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of like still a little bit of like remnants from dealing with, a spiritual journey and everything, and really, finding, God again through, through my this experience of losing my dad. And it's kind of pulled me in that direction. And so um, it's essentially a love song that I'm writing, to my wife, and just saying that, that's all going to be okay, and I will be here, no matter, no matter what happens, essentially at its bones. And so yeah, I think everything comes through in my writing indirectly, not even knowing it. Um, not even literally writing about like heaven or hell, but then, that line was the last line I came up with in the song because I had to find a title for the song. I didn't know what it was going to be. And it was a love song through and through. And I needed that one little part that where I sing at the end of the chorus, that line. And so I, the cadence of the line alluded to something like that. So I had to put that in, but yeah.
But even the best relationship, I mean, because yes, I was in a relationship at the time too. Even the
Mm.
best relationship, when you go through something like this, it's either going to make or break you.
Yeah. No, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we kind of, me and my wife kind of experienced that a little bit through her loss,
Hmm.
and our loss prior to COVID. So I feel like we were almost like prepped in a way,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Uh but yeah, we've definitely bonded together because, my wife was so I mean, we've been married for many years now. We've been together for over 10 years. So
Congratulations.
she knew my dad very, very, very well. And so they had a great relationship as well. So yeah, we kind of went through it together for sure. And we definitely bonded through it. And she was really the rock for me, she kind of set her own, emotions to the side and own sadness to the side to just be with me, and just to listen to my grief, let alone her going through the same thing,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is she the person that's in the video with you?
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She sings in our band as well. She's our backup singer and she's on the whole record. And she actually co-writes many of the songs. Lyrically, she's a phenomenal writer. She co-wrote three of the songs off the album. Not No Room in Hell, but a few others. Addicted, Die for You, and I forget the other one, but yeah.
I was going to ask you about Addicted. What was
Yes.
behind that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so she actually wrote that like that almost, as a whole. I wrote the chorus. It just says I'm so addicted to you, and that's really kind of it. But yeah, I've always kind of been a producer first, like musically first, being a guitarist first. I never really was a lyric listener, until I kind of had to be almost to learn how to write lyrics, or to try to strengthen that bone. But yeah, you know, that was kind of another thing where it was, we've been together and we're best friends, me and my wife, and we've been together for so long that there's been so many different things in our relationship that have happened with us having relationship strife as everyone does, many arguments and things, and they so grateful now that we've both grown so much where like we've been really smooth sailing the past years. But early on, a lot of those songs reflect our early on relationship struggles, because you can't really write, I think, from it's hard to write from a perspective of someone else when you're not relating to that story in any way, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
uh if I'm struggling with something, it's if I'm really sad one day, it's hard to write a happy song, and vice versa. So yeah.
I understand as an author, it's like depending on my mood, I may be writing something that's way back in the early part of the story, or maybe writing something way
Right.
ahead. It all depends
Exactly.
on my mood.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
It is. So, when you decided you wanted to be a guitar player, was this because this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to say it anyway, because you thought you could get the girls?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Originally, but yeah, in early high school, absolutely. It was something to set me apart from, being a jock, which I was kind of in high school. I came from a very, very small town. I graduated with 40 people, and came from a town of 500 people, Barnum, Minnesota, which I love, a little quaint little town, very much in the country. But yeah, my brother was kind of like the sports town hero. He was a college basketball player and phenomenal in high school, of course, and football and baseball. So I played basketball, football, and baseball as well. And it was a turning point in 10th grade when I decided to quit basketball. And I told the basketball coach, who's an extremely good family friend, um, that I think I'm going to back out. And I was scared that my dad was going to be upset, because all I knew at that point as a kid was we were just a very blue collar sports forward family. But that's when me and my dad's relationship started to really bloom, is when I quit basketball, because he saw that I wasn't just going to be my older brother, and he saw that I wasn't just going to fall in line. So that's when I picked up guitar really heavily, and started playing. So it was more of something actually to like set me apart, but it did have its benefits when it comes to meeting my wife and
Mhm.
kissing her for the first time. Definitely that the guitar was involved. And she likes to bring up that story as a way to as that I was schmoozing her to try and kiss her. But yeah, absolutely. I don't think if I wasn't a guitar player, I don't it's possible we wouldn't be together right now. So
Well, there's everything, everything happens for a reason. And I have to say, culture shock. I mean, I moved from New Orleans to Shreveport, and Shreveport's still pretty busy and stuff. But
mm,
500 people to Austin, Texas,
yeah,
that's
yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I went to college in a town called St. Cloud, and
okay.
which is a little bigger, and then Duluth, which is bigger. And then I lived in Minneapolis for a
Okay.
summer with my aunt. So I was no stranger to a little bigger towns, but definitely coming to Austin was an eye opener, for just the possibilities and just the life like we could make for ourselves for sure.
But yeah, I mean, even just starting out, going to college and stuff, that still had to be
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. In high school, all my best friends went to college in Duluth, which is about 30 minutes north of where I grew up, which is a little bigger town, and they went to a good college there. Me and about three other misfits, my best friends, since childhood, we all decided to go to St. Cloud, which is known as like the party school, if you will, in Minnesota. And so like we're all kind of the misfits went. And so we decided to go that just to go against the grain and to break the norm, I guess. But yeah, I think that was another decision in my childhood and my growing up that if I didn't take that, I wouldn't be here for sure. But everything happens for a reason, like you said, and the people along the way and everything. Met my wife in St. Cloud, while going to college there and everything. So, but yeah, that's not to say that Austin still wasn't a shock, because it definitely was to go on Sixth Street and start playing guitar every night. That was my original dream, was just to play guitar every night. Um, and then I found, your dream kind of just keeps getting pushed further and further. Without knowing it, you're achieving those dreams. And so I kind of achieved that in a way as to what I thought my dream was. Quickly realized that that dream was pretty hollow. So I need to kind of step up my game a little bit more. But yeah, so it's ever still on the pursuit.
well, and see, here's the thing. Also, because
Mhm.
I have known touring musicians, and what happens is it's hard to have a relationship because as a touring musician, if as a player, you're going to go on to a tour, and then you'll go on to another tour, and then you'll go on to another tour. And granted, you can make some decent money, but where is your life
Right.
or your partner?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of plays into me and my wife's relationship, we've definitely gone through a lot of ups and downs, as so many people have. But yeah, I kind of learned through those first. I mean, we grew up together pretty much. We got together when I was 20 and she was 19. And I'm now, older now, and so 10 years or so. But yeah, so we grew up together, and so I quickly learned around, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not perfect by any means, but I learned that I need to make a decision here. Do I want to be with, my wife forever, or is this like a weird, thing that's just a placeholder and like we're just kind of doing this just to do it? So I had to make the decision and I had to go all in, and and that's kind of true to my nature. I'm kind of an all-in type of person. So I've made that decision, and it's definitely still difficult, with any relationship, but especially being a musician, it helps that she sings with us live and everything, and that we can kind of connect like while we're going to play shows every single night and everything. So it's a tough thing to balance being band partners and being a marriage, but it's really rewarding, at the end of the day, and we're really, I think, happier because of it.
Pat Benatar and her husband have done it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I
It's like,
remember growing up, my mom and dad always went to Pat Benatar concerts because like they always had like these like little older legacy acts that came
hmm
through like near our town through the local casino. And so every time Pat Benatar came, like I feel like it was a couple times every couple years or whatever. They always are like, yeah, her and her husband are killing it. We got the guitar pick. Here you go. Uh, but yeah, yeah, absolutely. My mom always reminded me of that for sure.
and that's something to hold on to when you have the fans sitting there adoring you, and you know that that's only temporary. And I mean,
Right.
it's interesting because I talked to somebody earlier today who had a good dose of fame, and she talked about the fact that, yeah, everybody's backstage with you, they're cheering you on, telling you how great you are and everything,
Right.
and then all of a
Right.
sudden they're all gone,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah,
you're left alone.
I was just reading something about that recently, about like playing like sold out arenas, 10,000 people, and then going and staying in your hotel, there's no one. And so how difficult it is to manage a tour life, we haven't really been as a band like on tour. We've done a lot of shows, many shows, but we haven't been on like an extensive tour by any means yet. Hopefully soon. But absolutely, I think it's you know, but living in Austin almost, in the past 4 years or so, we haven't been on the road, but it's almost as if we've been on tour for the last 4 years in a way, being an Austin musician, because I've been playing almost every single night. Like, so it's tough. It has its wears and tears, but it's as long as you have your priorities straight and your head on straight, I guess, if
Are
you
you
will.
familiar with the song Need You Tonight?
And no, I don't think so.
Need You
But
Tonight is a song by NXS.
oh yes, yes. I know
Okay.
NXS.
Yes.
I don't
There's a
think I
song
know.
called Need You Tonight, and Michael Hutchence wrote it because he was on the road and he was missing his girlfriend. And yes,
Mm,
I knew a photographer who was on the road with them at one point, and there was no lack of having groupies. But he wrote this for his girlfriend because
yeah,
that's what he really wanted, was the
yeah,
connection.
yeah,
And so always
absolutely.
try to hang on to that. I mean, I know your wife's touring with you, which is awesome, but always
Right.
try to hang on that you need the reality. And that's where I think people get lost with the fame game, is they lose their sense of reality.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a false sense of reality, which kind of goes into, like playing on Sixth Street in Austin as I started out doing. A lot of people, a lot of musicians and a lot of people are kind of stuck on that circuit. Um, Feeling like they're these, superstars and everything playing for all these people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good money and it's good exposure. It's good to get your chops up and everything. But in a music sense, a lot of people feel that false sense of reality there, I feel like, and it's kind of a place to a place that's tough to keep growing because I feel like you get this false sense of fame and like you've already made it. And like I said, that was my goal originally to, be on Sixth Street every single night. But quickly you realize that that's, you do get that false sense of success for sure.
So with the record coming out, are you looking to get a bigger record label deal? Are you wanting to be an indie artist? How is that something that's figuring into your bigger plan? I mean, is this going to be something where you want to take it out on the road and tour extensively, or is this just going to be a little tour here, a little tour there? What do
Yeah.
those things look like for you?
Yeah, probably a little tour here, a little tour there, but I'm really open to anything that, however people connect with the record. My goal is to, try and share my story in any capacity, as much as possible, with hopes of, connecting to people that feel a similar way. And so whether that means signing to a label so that we can get the word out a little more, or maybe partnering with a nonprofit of some sort and maybe trying to, work that avenue. Whether that means, going and playing shows. Going and playing shows is something that I love. I'm definitely pride myself in me and my band as like a live band specifically. We're definitely not just music made in the studio. It's definitely we've strengthened our live performance and we've been live musicians with other people for many years. So it's something that I feel is a different experience that you won't get with just listening to the record, as every live show is. But I pride us on a very good live show. So yeah, definitely going out on the road. It's always amazing how many people I'm able to connect with, and how many people approach me with their stories at the end of shows, with maybe a similar story as mine and yours. Um, and it's tough to hear a lot of times, but I feel like that's part of my bigger purpose, I guess, with this music is trying to connect with other people like that. So if that means playing many, many more live shows, which I love doing, then I'm willing to do anything for that.
And then I have to ask, have you ever thought about doing the living room shows or the house party shows that seem to be creeping up more and more?
Yeah, yeah. No, I've seen the videos. I actually saw a video of, maybe you've seen the All American Rejects kind of doing like this house party show. They're revitalizing, trying to revitalize like this house show. But absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to add?
I don't think so. This whole record that that I kind of went on a journey to write, record, and now I'm promoting and touring with, um, is is so personal to me and everything in my journey, specifically in my story. Um, but that's not to say that there's, that only I can connect with it. And my main goal is that other people can find some connection with it in any capacity, really. Um, and just to touch people with this message that everything's going to be okay. And if you just wake up and you put your shoe on after the other one, and you're just positive about things, the day's going to be amazing. So
It will be. Well, thank you, Lou, for coming on.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
It has been a while since I actually went down the avenue of talking about my mom. So, as far as the suicide, and it kind of reminded me going back to the beginning of the reason I started the show, which was everybody's got that better two moment. And so when I look at this, I sit there and think, and it's funny because yesterday I was putting some stuff on Pinterest, so I revisited that episode. I didn't actually listen to it, but I revisited it. And the truth is, you have to really look at suicide and understand that there are so many reasons behind it. There's so much to deal with grief. I've experienced the grief of losing a husband. I've experienced the grief of losing children, even though it wasn't death and I know they're still roaming the world. It still tugged at my heart. And the loss of my mother. Each, as far as the husband's death, that was a long-term illness. And with my mother, it was suicide. But in a way, it was a long-term illness as well because She was never happy. She'd have moments of happiness, but she was always struggling to try to figure things out and try to keep moving forward. But I don't know that my mom was ever really truly happy. There were times when I knew she was, but at a certain point, as I got to be a late teenager and early 20s, and I didn't live with her often, but I don't think she was ever happy. I think she got involved with somebody, and I read this book that actually got rid of the letters that she wrote. But in this, one of those little Hallmark books, one of the books about love, she had written notes in there. And what I saw was a woman who was so desperate to be loved and to be shown love. But it couldn't be by her family, it couldn't be by her child, it had to be by a man. And that said that she didn't love herself enough. But how can you love yourself when you constantly are in a war with yourself? How do you understand how to heal yourself if you're always seeking outside validation? Now, I'm not saying that everybody that commits suicide is going through that. Everybody's suicide, their their avenue or their story is different. Their reasoning for doing it is different. But the one thing that a lot of people lose hope, and that's why they go down that path, because they don't see that tomorrow's going to be better. They don't see that their pain's going to be better. All they see is the darkness that's around them in the mental fog. Lou's dad said, I won't hurt you guys. And I think that's, you know, in the person who has the clouded mind, they don't see that they're going to hurt you. They don't know the ramifications. So if you've ever had these thoughts, really think about this. The people that love you, your friends, like his wife, she lost her friend to suicide. The people that are around you, your friends, your family, your spouse if you have one, your children if you have them, even your pets, even your pets. They all they all depend on you. You're part of their life. And sure, you may not hear from people all the time, but you still fit into their life in some portion, some small way. And you matter. And that is one of the hardest things I think that most people don't realize is that you do matter, that you matter to so many people in the world. And it may not be 10,000, it may not be 100, but to those five or six individuals, or even one individual, you make a difference for. And you have to remember that. You have to know that in the heart, your heart of hearts. Because whatever happens, whatever darkness may be going on that day, tomorrow's a new day. You get to close your eyes and wake up. And sure, it may not be perfect the next day. But then again, something may spark joy in you. You might go outside or you might look through your kitchen window and you might see chipmunks running around, frolicking, like a simple pleasure that they're getting from it. Because when you look at suicide and you have survived a family member suicide, there's another caveat that underlies there, and that is being rejected. You feel like there's so many things that, they've missed out on that they could have, you could have talked to them and you could have told them, look, I love you. I want you to be here. I want to do this. My mom, when she died, that last phone call, she told me to have a nice wedding. That's what she told me. Have a nice wedding. When we had talked prior, months prior, weeks prior, about planning my wedding. And she tells me, have a nice wedding. Well, that's not going to put a damper on that now, is it? And yes, I can say that glibly now because it's 30 something, 40 something, well, 35 years ago, roughly, almost 35 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, and even though, yes, she did come to me in the dream and I should have listened, but the fact of the matter is, it tainted it. It tainted that whole ceremony. It tainted everything because in my mind, there was always going to be this have a nice wedding. But for a long time, I felt like she rejected me. And that was me being selfish, I'm sure. And people say suicide is selfish. And I'm not saying it is because they're not in their right mind. They're not thinking clearly. They're not thinking about the bigger picture. They're thinking about the pain that they're in and what's going on in their life or what feels catastrophic. And I know, what does this have to do with Lou? Well, the suicide thing does definitely stand out. But know that you're not alone. And if you're in trouble, there's help. Find the person to talk to. Find someone that will let you feel your feelings. Because depression, which leads to suicide, and I'm not saying everybody, especially if you have other things going on, you have to get help. You have to find somebody to talk to. Going through cancer, there's been moments where I've been depressed. There's been moments, and I've talked about that openly, that, initially it was like the first thing I thought of is I don't want to die. But I've had to come to terms with that. And I've had to come to terms with doing what I do and enjoying what I do and making the most of each day. So instead of wallowing, which I still have my moments, I have to step up and live a life. Make the most of the time I have. And I invite you guys to do that too. And if you have that moment where you feel lost or hopeless, reach out to somebody. Reach out to your bestie. Even if they're having a crap day, reach out and just say, hi, I need you. Or call somebody, call a hotline, do something because your life is important and it will turn around. It really will. So, on that note, go check out Lou's record. Going to change gears real quick. It is very nice. It's very nicely done and it's very relaxing and it's got a very good chill vibe to it. Even though some of the lyrics may be a little harder to listen to, um, the music is definitely chill and you should check it out. I want to thank Lou for coming on. I would like to thank Fast Susie for the intro and outro music, and most importantly, and I'm sorry I had such a long-winded wrap up. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, no matter when you're listening, morning, noon, or night. I really, really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.